where we're at now with our business, Michael, climate change, business, whatever. I know I have things to do, but I've been working hard at getting Steve's thing done. Panacea for the masses, dear. Because the masses are the asses who will be in the clashes with each other when they come to see that their trash is being fed back to them because they did spend too much time in the ditches, you see, where they were taking out their stitches from their most recent lobotomy, and now they have to find a new way to try to escape from reality, because reality is coming to a theater near you, and it's going to be a lot like the ones you knew, because the ones you knew were the ones who told you that you would have to pay the price for your vice. And you said, well, that's bad advice. I don't have to pay the price for my vice. I just have to get others to pick up after me. And if they don't pick up after me, I'll shoot them, you see. And if they get shot with a vaccine, I'll have to get a lot of anxiety because I'll have to think that they are about to murder me because the vaccine has a lethal blend of toxic brew that turns them into a zombie that can't see that the reality is that I have to know how to control my anxiety. And my anxiety is so high, my dear, that I could clear half an acre if I would steer through it with my trust on my rusty, dusty can of beer. Can you recognize me by my sharp wit already, Stephanie? I think so. I think you've been a little caustic before. Indeed, I have. And I hit the floor running when I heard the door open, and you said, hey, I read the book of love, and I want to know if any of you have any new stories to tell. So I thought I'd come tell a story and see if we could talk about it today, or if you're going to tell me to go away, because everybody's going to say, well, that can't be Jesus today, because Jesus would never say things like that. Jesus would just say, I love you no matter what you do. If you support a man who tells lies and manipulates you in order to do whatever he wants to do, and none of us have a clue what he wants to do actually, because we have no idea where it gets him. anywhere except a lot of wear and tear on his body, you see. So we can't figure out why he keeps lying and cheating and bleeding about what a problem everybody else is who keeps calling him on his lies and his cheating and his bleeding like a sheep in wolf's clothing. However, he's not much of a wolf, you see, because his wolf calls are getting rank because he had to accept the rank assessment of his prior activities because of the civilities of the trial court, you see. And now he's got to face the criminalities of his accomplice, you see, because his accomplice was one who already ran up the tree and said, "Hey, don't take me, take him instead." And now I have to laugh because the story is getting hilarious. This story is getting absolutely hilarious from here because it's so nefarious. And yet, did you just say that 70% of those who think they are trusting on God and liberty believe that President Biden cheated in the last presidential election? Can I believe my ears? Through the tears, there is no saving them, Stephanie. There's no saving them. And I'm pretty blunt here because I want you to hear what I'm saying, my dear. I want you to hear what I'm saying. It's not up to you to save them. It's not up to me to save them. It's not up to God to have to keep reminding them that He doesn't give a shit if they wear their hair over their ears so that His tears can't be heard by them because He'll just let them go, do what they want to do, and He'll hang on to the few who love to talk to Him, you see. And now, even you are going, "What the F? Jesus, it can't be you, but it is me, you see, because I'm not playing in a way that will cause any harm, you see, because all the harm has already been done. And now it's time for the charm life of those who said, well, we're sorry you harmed our planet, you see. And of course, we all took part in the Jubilee when we were throwing around our plastic and our driving our cars that spewed their toxic brew. However, at least we know that we have to be the ones who choose to figure it out, you see. We make a problem. If we make a doo-doo on the floor, we have to clean it up, you see. So we're working on it, and we're not pretending it didn't happen. We're not sticking our heads in the sand. We're not saying, hey, this is your land and not my land, and you can do whatever you want. We're saying to you, the people who did the doo-doo, but like to pretend they don't go poo like you do. They think that they can be completely, absolutely innocent of the harm they do because they don't have the ability to farm. You see, they can't farm because if they did, they would raise the alarm for what's happening to their planet. You see, because the farmers are beginning to wake up. The farmers are beginning to see that they have a responsibility for the problems in their own corner of the universe. You see? Okay. Jesus. Jesus. You know, it's, if people hear it, this is hilarious because the second coming of Jesus is really not what they expected, is it? And I kind of like you that way, that you got some character and kind of the way I always thought you were back in the day, that you could stand up to all those puffed up shirts and kings and people that think they own the court and uh, pilot there and just say, well, do what you got to do, buddy, because I'll do what I got to do. And that showed a lot of character. And I think you're showing a lot of character now, and I kind of like it that you call it a spade a spade. But, the people you're talking about, and I can't believe there's a single person today that supports Trump that is, like you say, did not have a lobotomy, is not living in, they're living in a world, a different, they have spent so much time with their alternate facts that they have created an alternate universe that they live in. And you have to wonder what color the sky is in their world. But it's a world where you can say, well, it's 65 degrees today and raining, so that proves there's no global warming. Or you can say, well, the temperature dropped 10 degrees overnight, so I think we're in a cooling phase on the planet. It's just completely, I don't know, it's just a different world they live in. That's the only thing I can say is I've come to the conclusion that they truly live in an alternate world. You couldn't you couldn't act that way and talk that way unless you just truly lived in a world where things, what? Are cats purple and yellow polka dotted? I don't know. What you say is actually true, Steph. They do live in an alternate world because everybody interprets their world according to their own tendencies to promote their own agendas. And so, if your agenda is to live in peace and harmony, you will interpret the world in such a way that you will say, well, I don't want to hang out with those people today because that would be misery with their guns and their beer and their pickup trucks. Because even though you don't have anything against pickup trucks, because they can be very handy at times, you're not a beer drinker and you don't like guns and you don't think it's so much fun to shoot somebody who knocks on your door to ask if they can use the telephone because their car broke down. So you live in a different world than they do. And they just live in their own little cages, you see. They just live in a little cage where they flash up on the screen, on the walls of their cages, the world they want to see. And it's a catastrophe. It's just a catastrophe that the world is full of all these little cages, you see, and they push their shit out through the bars and just let it sit there, and they don't feel they have to clean up because somebody comes along and gives them a pan of food, you see, pushes it through the bars and they can eat it, and hands them a ballot and says, "Here, please sign here and vote for Donald Trump today." And they say, "Okay, as long as he can corral all those people that are running around there and don't stay in their cages, because if you don't stay in your cage, then we're afraid of you, and so we have to keep our guns close, and we have to make fun of you and say that you don't know what you're doing when they haven't a clue." And so it truly is an alternate universe. They live in an alternate universe made up of alternate facts, and that is okay because it means that they'll go away. They'll just go away eventually because their cages will not support them, you see, and they'll try to shoot the people that go by with their guns that they have in a corner. And they'll say, "Well, I had to shoot you today because you came my way and I was scared of you, you see, because you're not in a cage." And so they'll rant and they'll rage, but they can't escape reality, honey. They cannot escape reality. They can stay in their cages and pretend all they want, but they can't change love. They can't change the reality of love. They can't change the reality of life. The problem is that they don't understand what love is and they don't understand what life is. They think that love is something that they can choose to use when it benefits them, and they think that life is just a drop in the pan, you see, that they'll have a life on Earth and it will sizzle out like a drop of water in a hot pan, and then they'll go to heaven, you see, and sit there for eternity. And so they have not a clue. They have not a clue. But what can you do? What can you do? Well, that's my question. Jesus, what can you do? What is, I mean, I think it's hilarious too, actually. But what can you do? Obviously, I want to live in a world of peace and harmony. I already do right now at the moment. But I do, and I like the fact that you have people to share with. And to me, a world of peace and harmony requires a lot of moving energy. And, it's just like the energy that moves through the body, all the cells. It's got to be on the move. And you can't just cage off a cell of the body and refuse to, interact with the rest of the cells of the body or accept the reality of the energy that flows through the body and think that if you're a toe cell, that you can control the brain. It's just, I don't know, it's just funny to me. And I'm glad that it's funny to you too, because then I have someone to laugh with about it, because it's just people get so downhearted about it that it's hard to be lighthearted about it. However, that said, only those people like me who never really trusted on a mealy mouthed Jesus who would, want to torture people and sit there and say, hey, you got to torture these people if they don't believe in me today, or you got to slap somebody across the face if they say they talk to Jesus, or you got to run away. That's the main thing for most people who heard this, who thought that they trusted on Jesus and they had a friend in Jesus, they would run away and they would say, this is not Jesus, this is not Jesus, this is not Jesus. So I don't know, Jesus. I think it's amusing too. A good time was had by all then, because I had a good time talking to you about this. Because sometimes we get so serious that we take ourselves too seriously and we think that we're from Sirius, have to be the star seed, you see, and then we have to save humanity from their mendacity. Only we can't figure out why we're in a body, a human body, if we're from Sirius, because we have to be a Syrian, you see. So all the Syrians can stand up and say, hey, we're Sirius, the Syrian, and so why don't you guys listen to us? And they'll say, because we mean the real Syrians, not the one from Syria, you see, ones from Sirius. They say, well, we know a thing or two here in Syria because we've put up with a lot and we could tell you a lot about humans and how they play. And the ones from Sirius, the star seeds, say, oh, you're not serious, are you? You don't really think you understand how humans play. We're the ones that are so advanced in our reality that we can be here and try to figure out these humans. And then we'll have to give them a lobotomy so they won't be so cruel, you see. And then when they have a lobotomy, they'll follow us, you see. We'll all go back to Sirius and not be. So accessing a sense of humor, you see, because there's nothing like a good laugh, is there, Steph? Nothing like a good laugh. I agree with you, Jesus. There's nothing like a good laugh, and the ability to laugh at the world you see, I think, is right up there. Uh, now we're gonna piss off all the star seeds from Sirius and the Pleiadians and all that. So, Jesus, you're pretty good at pissing people off, aren't you? Seems so, doesn't it? It seems so. I have a history of pissing people off, and so there's a few that were my friends, and there's still a few that are my friends, and we still have a good time, and we can still laugh about it all, and we can make it rhyme, heaven and earth, and we can say, hey, I'm back today to piss you off, and if you think that I'm the only son of God, and I have to be all godly you see, then you probably have no clue what God would do if he were me. And so I think that we can be comedians, you see, Steph. We should put on a show and we should have our stand up routine, and I'll be me and you can be you, and we'll be so funny that all the runny noses will run away because they'll say, hey, you're making fun of Jesus today. Hey, you're making fun of Jesus today. Yeah, that they might say that, Jesus. They might say you're making fun of Jesus today. And but nobody's gonna say you're making fun of Steph today. That's true. because they don't think you're the only son of God. And so it's kind of hard to make fun of you because they think that you are just one of them. A woman who has to trust on me to carry your sins, you see. And since you like to carry your own sins and you don't have that many, you can pretty much fit them into a thimble right now. I think that we can hang out together and each carry our own sins, and I'll carry mine. And so if I begin to sound a little caustic, you see, I'll have to carry a little plastic with me that I can throw around, you see, because it's kind of caustic to the world I see to throw my plastic in the sea. And so we can be the ones who destroy our world, you see, and then we'll hide our heads in the sand and pretend like we didn't do it. And we'll say, God is going to pluck me up out of the sea and take me to heaven, you see, because that's the whole point. The whole point of what they're doing, you see, is to bring about the time of the rapture so that they can be wrapped up in plastic and taken to heaven, you see, where they will live on for eternity at the right hand of God, you see. And so I think we know why they are hiding their head in the sand, because they want their asses to be the first to see the rapture that's coming for them. And then they can be plucked up out of the sand and taken to the right hand of God, who will whack them over the behind and say, hey, you didn't play very kind, did you? And they'll say, What are you talking about? We voted for Donald Trump because he was the biggest and meanest and stupidest person we could see, just like me. And God would say, well, I guess that's true. So what'll we do? What'll we do with you? What will we do with you? And they will say, well, just let me sit here in heaven. You see, I can sit here for forever and a day because that's the way they told me to play. They said if I voted for Donald Trump, you see, and ruined the USA, that you would pluck me up out of the sea and take me to heaven, and I could sit here forever and a day. And God might say, well, okay, that's the way you want it. You can go sit in that corner, and you sit in that corner, and think about your crimes and the times that you had the opportunity to help me to help you to overcome your mendacity and to help you see that I will always be real. You see, I am real and I am not half and half. I'm not half of a man and half of a woman, you see. I'm not half of a dog and half of a cat. I am where it's at. I am God. And the fact that I'm God doesn't mean I can't be the one who flows through the totality of creation, you see, because that's the mystery that you forgot about because you thought you had to figure it out, didn't you? You thought you had it figured out, and so there wasn't any mystery for you. You just do what they told you to, and then you go to heaven, you see, and sit there for eternity. So now you go sit in your corner for eternity and think about how you could have played it differently. And then they'll go sit in their corner for eternity. Although, of course, they won't sit there for eternity, Steph. You know that. eventually they'll have to be recycled back to Earth, you see. But we won't tell them that because they don't want to know that, because they trust that they're going to be in heaven for eternity. And so we'll just trust that they have to sit in their corner for eternity and think about how they could have done it differently. And that's okay with me. That's okay with me because it's time to repopulate the world with those who are ready to evolve into a trust on a new resolve. And the new resolve, you see, would be that we are all in it together. We're all in it together. And so we're in it with the ones that voted for Trump. And they are in the last blast of their energy because they can't overcome the truth, you see. They just can't overcome the truth. And the truth is that they will always be our friends, you see, playing their harps on some cloud somewhere where they will say, "Hey, I'm in heaven up here. Can't you see me? Here I am in heaven. Can't you see me?" And everybody will ignore them because that's what they did. They ignored me when I tried to talk to them. They ignored all the people that tried to find a way to be heard on earth one day. And so everybody will just ignore them until they have to come back to earth. And then they'll ignore the ones in heaven again, probably, unless they learn their lesson. And if they learn their lesson, then they'll be returned to a trust on mobility because they'll be able to change their point of view, you see. They'll be able to change their point of view and they'll be able to grow, you see. But the problem has always been that if we're all in it together, we all have to get through it together. We got to get through it together. And so they can get through it. Well, they're sitting in their corners in heaven, you see, and the ones who are still on earth will have to bear the weight of the turn of the screw because the screw will turn in order to return us all to a good vibration on celebration. Even the ones from Sirius or the Pleiadians can join in the celebration and say, "Hey, I'm a star seed today." And we will say, "That's great. What seed did you star in?" And they will say, "Well, that means I'm better than you because I come from a different galaxy. You see, I didn't want to be human because humans are kind of stupid and dirty and they go poo poo and sometimes they say naughty words. And we wanted to be more famous, you see, because you can get a lot of notoriety if you're from Sirius because you're so serious about it. And if you tell a joke or two about how you are so stupid you don't know how to solve the mystery of how God can be a reality and he can be the one who talks to me, but he can also be the totality of reality, then I guess we all are in a stew because we're all in it together, aren't we? We're all mixed up in it together. And so we all just have to love each other and say, "Hey, it's been fun to play this way." And to say, "Hey, the last thing I want to do is have to play with you." And yet, it's what we have to do because we're all in it together. We're all in it together. Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, it's good to get the different points of view. It's different to listen to you. It's fun to laugh with you. We always come back to the same place, don't we? And I guess that's what humor is, isn't it? Laugh at ourselves. Yes, to laugh at ourselves, Steph. And that is something that I like to do. I like to laugh at myself because I'm so funny, you see, that I should be on stage and be the rage of the galaxies when they see that I am the only Son of God that can claim to be the access to making fun of the only Son of God, you see. That's great. That's great. All right. I will post it. Do you want me to post this so that people can make fun of you and me and run away? Bay window. The bay window is here. So they can hear what they want to hear and see what they want to see. And you and me can have a jubilee because we have so much fun, you see, when we get together with our friends. And I can hardly wait to see everyone tomorrow, you see, because I enjoy our get togethers as much as anyone does. And so I'll see you all tomorrow. That is to say, the ones who play in the way that Steph and I play. Talk to you later, alligator. See you soon, you big baboon. Baboon. I got to think of a new one that has to do with the Son of God. Can you think of one, Jesus? Well, how about I do to you what you do to me? That's an old one here, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Steve would always say that. I do to you what you do to me. And we could say, if you play my way, I'll see ya in the funny papers, honey. What? That doesn't even rhyme. It has to rhyme? Yes, like, see you later, alligator. See you soon, you big baboon. Don't you know how to play that game? There's something about after a while, crocodile. Okay, so let me play. Keep the faith if you care how I wear my hair, then maybe you should stare at the maiden fair, which doesn't care if this rhymes because the times they are a changin'. The times they are a changin', and we are changing with them. And if you'd like to change with us, then would you please turn the page, because you'll find a new kind of picture there, because the picture is the one that I'm going to send to you. And when you get that picture and you knew that you grew through your willingness to accept me in a new way, then I'm going to say, hey, all I care about is to shout from the rooftops, there will be a day when we will all play in a kinder way. And so the blue jay will say, have it your way, have it your way, have it your way. Okay, I guess that one would work. Have it your way, blue jay. I could use that one. Or have a good day, blue jay. How about that, Jesus? That works. So, if you want to say adieu, I will let you be a kangaroo. Oh, okay, that's a good one. Adieu to you, kangaroo. That's a good one. Adieu to you, kangaroo. I have to remember that one. Please cease to mock me here because I'm a little unaccustomed to this rhyme game, you see, because all the rhyming in the heavenly realms is from the trust on Steve, you see, because Steve started the rhyming, right? He did start the rhyming. Just once in a while, he would rhyme. Back in the days when I first ran into him, he would start and he would rhyme something. If I was having a little hard time, I wasn't sure I was getting it right, he'd rhyme it. And so that I knew I had picked it up right. And then when we were on Hearth, when we would go to Hearth, which was between heaven and earth, and we would meet at the cabin there, and he would get kind of bored and he would say, well, Steph, you're so busy. Why don't you come visit me? And I would be busy and I didn't have time to go to Hearth. And you know that Steve was always sitting around waiting for me. And so I said, well, why don't you do something while you're there, instead of just fishing and stuff, because we were on a lake. Why don't you, didn't you always want to be a poet? Why don't you be a poet? And so he decided to be a poet. So that led to many adventures and jokes. But ever since that day, which was, I don't know, when I first started talking to everybody, heaven side, they weren't rhyming. But ever since that day, Steve started to rhyme, and then Vernon would follow him around and rhyme. And then everybody started rhyming. So I don't know. It just seems kind of automatic now that everybody has to rhyme there. That is because we came to see that rhyming will help people to understand the timing of what's going on here. That when we talk about helping people to see that the coming era will be a time of peace and harmony, we want them to understand that they have to come to see the synchronicity in everything. They have to see the synergy. They have to see how everything works together. And so somehow when we rhyme, it seems to help with them to see that rhyming heaven and earth is like saying that they can be part of the same poem, you see. They can function as a synergy. It can be a symmetry, like roses are red and violets are blue. It's a symmetry. And so when people get more accustomed to that idea, then we might have to up the ante a little bit, and we might have to add something like pentameters or something to our rhyming so that everybody has to talk in. Do we say pentameters or pentameters? Pentameters. And then we will have a big party, and we won't be so, not going to say it, Steph. Thank you, Jesus, for not saying it. And due to you, kangaroo. Have a good day, Blue Jay. See you soon, you big baboon. And after a while, crocodile.